Good afternoon, good morning for us in Argentina. I am Dario Tromboto, you said that, and I am working with permafrost and Andean permafrost, so it's a frozen ground, which is very important for us because this frozen ground is with ice sometimes with a lot of ice, and therefore it's important because of the hydrological significance of the permafrost in the Andes, especially in the zones of the Andes, of this mountain, this big cordillera in South America, because some parts are very dry, and where the ice is like some special deposit of water, solid water for the future. So this institute where I work is in West Argentina, and close more to Chile than of the rest of Argentina, of some parts, for example, the Pampas and Buenos Aires. And in the middle, more or less, 32 degrees south altitude in the Southern Hemisphere we are now. It's autumn. It's not cold, but in the middle altitudes in Argentina, for example, so it's cloudy now, and it begins the winter time. For us, very important also because I said the central Andes is not so humid than in winter. It's with snow, and this snow is very important for the rivers and the hydrological system in the central Andes. This institute is in charge of many with many projects, and we work with different topics about the environmental science in not only in West and Middle Argentina, but in different parts of Argentina. So you can find here specialists who work with botanic, with glaciers too, with dendrochronological studies, researches in where the forests are in South America and so on. So my position here is I am researcher at this institute for many years now, and we are working with permafrost, and we reconstruct not only the permafrost in the Andes now, but also the paleoclimatic conditions in South America to reconstruct where the permafrost in the past was. So if you have some question about me, about the institute in Mendoza, in Argentina, tell me now. Okay, thank you very much. Then I will speak about the Andes for you, to give you some idea of this new mountainous backbone in South America. As the Andes are of Cretaceous age, that means of about 145 million years ago, and with a lot of volcanic activity. The highest volcanoes are in South America, and we have a lot of seismic movements in Mendoza and along this Cordillera de los Andes. And these movements are feared by its destructive power. Why we have this activity, this strong activity in the Andes, and is related to the South American plate. You know, maybe that we have different in the tectonic, in the structural geology, we have different plates, and we have the plate of South America, and we have Nazca and the Antarctic plates in the west, and these plates have a subduction process under the South American plate, which is important for the rising of the Andes. The Andes begin in the Northern Hemisphere. We have the Andes in two different hemispheres. Northern hemisphere where Poland is, and at 11 degrees now north in Venezuela, and they go to south to different countries: Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Argentina, and Chile. And the Andean mountains can reach almost 7,000 meters of height in the province of Mendoza in Argentina, close to me now. But in other range, we have in Mendoza 3 different ranges, and it's in the limit with Chile, where the Aconcagua is. The Aconcagua is the highest mountain in the Southern Hemisphere, but also in the Western Hemisphere. The Andes constitute a barrier to the west or Pacific winds, and we will see in the PowerPoint now where the Andes are in the Southern Hemisphere. We see some parts in yellow, where the central Andes are very dry, and in green, the part of the Andes with more humidity. So the next slide was to explain what I said about the plates, Nazca and Antarctica, and the age. And you can see now, for example, some volcano in it's very complex. This volcano is a Peteroa volcano in South Mendoza with a lot of activity just now. And so what I wanted to show now is about the climate. If you know the climate about the classification of Köppen, some German specialists in the past. You can see in the Andes, we have the Andes, as you know, you see my arrow, then you see different parts with different climates along the Andes. So we have dark blue, pale blue, and the Andes with this relation to climate and show different aspect, different landscape, different geomorphological characteristics. Then to see that about what I said about the winds, then the winds, the westerly, for example, they leave a lot of humidity in the west part, and what I mentioned, in some cases the coast, that the rain and the snowfall to their west or to their east also is important, very close to the mountains, not so far of the Cordillera. What is very important to define then extensive regions like the Patagonian steppe, the Cuyo region in Argentina, because they have little rain, scarce rain. So then if we analyze the different environments close to the Andes, we have, for example, in the central Andes, where we showed the pink color. This region is very, very dry, and in this region we have until 150 millimeters per year of rain, and sometimes few, or some regions are without rain or snow. Like in other parts in the Arctic or in the Antarctic, here is also the solid water which fall in the Andes with different aspects. We have snow, we have fern, we have graupel, so different form of snow. And what I wanted to show with this dry zone, that we have then between this 13 degrees and 27 degrees south, a very important environment, so-called Arid diagonal of South America. This region is very important now because of different ideas, we have the salinas and salares. What are salinas and salares? We define these extensions with salt, with salt, and different kind of salts. For example, chlorides or sulfates, and so. These extensions with salinas and salares in the Andes, very high, are in Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. And now very important also sometimes because of some mining related to these salts, like with lithium in Argentina and Bolivia and Chile. So you see the aspect of the salinas and salares like that. In the middle is a particular animal, is a vicuña, very important in Europe for you. For example, I don't know if you heard about that, but these animals are very important because of the wool. It's very expensive, and the people trying to have the vicuñas at home to exploit the wool of these animals. Salars are also similar, but with other minerals and with other important minerals in the region. So if the other map, we show the different climates, and if we take now the temperatures, we can define, you see in the coast, this is the Pacific, and here is the limit of South America. We call the Americas we divide the Americas in three different parts: the middle, the north, and the South America. In the South America, if we take the temperature, the middle temperature, the annual middle temperatures, we can define them. This is very small, but the idea is to show you what is, one moment, now is small, and we can find in this map of South America then and about the temperature the most important regions, cold regions in the Andes. In black you see the temperature, the mean annual temperature between 0 degrees Celsius and -5. And why is so important this for us? Because in this regions, so black regions, in these points along the Andes, we can find down the glaciers and also permafrost, and permafrost with ice. What is the topic of my research unit? So I try to show now the most important are in the south because of you can see the tropic, because of the latitude, of course. And you see the points, and in the different points we can see them. Now, one moment. Well, these points are indicating then the important regions with cryogenic activity. Cryogenic activity, we can define that with the presence of forms like rock glaciers. Rock glaciers are some mesopforms, and in the landscape of the Andes, and it means a form of creeping permafrost. So permafrost movements because of the content of ice. I want to show now the province of Mendoza. Chile is in the west, and along Mendoza, also like a backbone, then is the presence of the Andes. And when we have seen then that the most important westerlies with humidity are in the west region, and this wind are leaving the humidity in the western part of South America. So if you see then these three different regions what were indicated in the slide are with monitoring sites and where we are working in Mendoza. Mendoza is a big province. It's not like Poland, but smaller, but it's very, very big. And in the upper part, you can see different ranges with mountains. In the middle, very important volcanoes, and also in the south. So another slide, and where Cordón del Plata, so silver range, is the name of the region with a lot of rock glaciers, with this form or geoform or cryoforms, which I define as a very important form because of the presence of ice, subterranean ice or ground ice. So the surface of the region, you see, this is not like you can imagine, for example, in low latitudes in the Northern Hemisphere. We have a lot of sediment, so it's a rock glacier now, no? It's just like a tank with a lot of sediments. But if we analyze then the form, we can see movement. You see, the important ridges for us, they are signals of cryogenic activity. What that means, that is very important because this activity is because of the ice. If we see then the cover and we have the possibility to drill in this cover a lot of sediments, cryogenic sediment we can go now because of this cryogenic activity, frozen and thawing, cryo weathering is the process that then produce a lot of sediments. Then these layers of sediments cover then the ice, which is very important for us in, for example, in the dry Andes. Also, it's possible that we have the volcanoes, and we have a very high geothermal process in the subterranean part of the Andes, but in the upper part you see the ice covered by sediments, and this ice show us the presence of ice as well. And in this case, in this volcano that we are studying in Mendoza, is also in the Mendoza province. Is more or less at between 3,500 4,000 100 meters above sea level. We can see now, for example, in the process of what I spoke about, this cryo weathering, the weathering of the stones which are in the Andes, and then the process of the integration in different states, that the sediments are in the upper part of the Andes, and what is in the lower part of these layers with sediments, ice, water in different processes in different states. So also the Andes, the dry Andes, the central Andes, they have wetlands, very important for the life, for it's with water. And if you see in the case, it's very small, but these wetlands, margines or vegas in South American Spanish, are regions where the guanacos, where the llamas are, and is related to human movement in the past, not only in the present. So to go on, then I wanted to speak about if we have the idea of the Andes as only peaks of mountains, and so it is not so. We have the altiplanos, very high plateaus with a height of more than 5,000 meters and very cold regions. So compare now, and researchers study the plateaus, the altiplanos in the Andes, because some regions are similar to Mars. In Mars, we think we have projects also in this unit, research unit, and then at the Yanigla Institute, and because we think that these regions, like in Mars, are with permafrost, rich in ground ice, what I said, very important for us. The Andes are most varied and complex with very different characteristics. We told about that because of the climate and so. And the extension is more than 7,000 kilometers in length. That means is enormous, the distance between the North South American Andes. We can say 10 times. People are different, animals are different, vegetation, we can imagine that. And in the south, the Andes show mountain ranges with very important glaciers, ice caps. If you see in your maps, I don't know, at the school, and so you can see very important ice fields, the Patagonian Ice Field in South America, very important. And if we go again to the north, the glaciers appear only at high altitudes. For example, and I mentioned the mountain Aconcagua because it's very beautiful. I have a photograph of internet, and this mountain is with more than 6,000 meters above sea level, and it's secret for the Quechua people. We have Argentina, if you know, we have a lot of immigrants. It's a European country. There are minorities of Poland, of course, here. And there were colonies in the past of Polish people. But in some parts of South America, you can find special people, indigenous people like Quechua or Aymaras, that they are with a lot of long history in South America. And this Aconcagua mountain in Peru is I mentioned that as an example for you because according to the belief of the Quechua people, it's the origin of the masculine energy. So now I show you then different parts of the Andes in Venezuela. If you can imagine, with the global warming, this is a problem to find glaciers in the north part of the Andes. You see some small patches of with fur and with ice in the Andes of Venezuela. It's in the case of Pico Humboldt. Then we have the Nevado or Sajama in Peru, very nice, special mountain. Yes, I wanted to mention Sajama because from this mountain was possible to obtain the first or the oldest samples of ice in drillings in glaciers. With this drilling in glaciers and to obtain ice, different layers of ice, we can reconstruct the paleoclimate of from some parts of South America. So Aconcagua, this is the beautiful mountain in Peru. But South America is so big, and the mountains are so varied, and you see the Andes Bolivianos with the fantastic glacier part, maybe not so big. Sometimes, like I said, in South Argentina or in Chile, the patches with ice, with fern, and so are bigger, but the mountains are very, very beautiful. And what now we go to south, and we see in the Andes, we reached Argentina or Chile, and we can find the most important mountain because of the height, the Aconcagua. The Aconcagua is the highest mountain in the Southern Hemisphere and also in Western Hemisphere, after Himalaya, are from the most important mountain. Here is in Spanish, but it's not the problem. In the left side of Chile, because we go to south, and in the north, the northern part of Argentina, of course. And I wanted to show some ways to go to the Aconcagua. It's not a very modern topic to go to the Aconcagua, because the Incas, the Quichua, the Aborigines people in South America, they had, or they have, the Aconcagua as sacred mountain as well. So if we go down one slide more, we see the Aconcagua. One part, the Aconcagua is massive, is very big, and you see in red a small way. This way is very interesting, and I have chosen that because of you, because this way and this glacier is the so-called Polish way to go to the top in the Aconcagua. And if we mention then the Polish activities or interesting studies in Argentina and South America, we can find this interesting book, maybe very new for you, Más alto que los cóndores, in Spanish is translated, is about the expedition of 1934 and of Ostrowski, this Ostrowski expedition. The book is 20 years later published, and I put in this screen wrote here the Polish glacier to indicate one of the most important way to go to the top of the Aconcagua. So, and to go down to more south, you see now the Andes with forest, not tropical forest like in the northern part of the Andes. Now is the rainforest or the sub-Antarctic forest of the Andes, the Torres del Paine in Chile. And to be democratic, then I have chosen two very new, very beautiful mountain, Torre Egger and Standard in Argentina. So, and I think that was what I wanted to present about the Andes, and it is a pleasure if you have questions. I want to say thank you very much that you had heard my exposition, and I put some questions for the future, for now, or if you want to ask about these topics.